Hey guys, tonight we slip out of our own comfortable beds and into the brisk, scratchy straw mat of a Persian water carrier, some 1500 years ago. It's not quite dawn. The sky above the city is the color of faded ink, still clinging to the last threads of night. Your eyelids feel heavy, and there's the faint smell of wood smoke, donkey, and your neighbor's dubious sheep wafting through the clay brick walls. As you rise, you already feel the anticipation. Your bones creak, your knees protest, and your brain whispers, "You probably won't survive this." But don't worry, neither would I. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where my fellow insomniacs are listening from, and maybe who's also up at this ridiculous hour. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You swing, your legs over the edge of the mat, wriggling your toes against the chilly floor. The Persian plateau is notorious for its temperature swings, blazing days, bone-cold nights. So you're already debating if you should invent heated slippers and retire before age 30. Historians still argue whether people back then had any clever way of warming up, besides huddling together like nervous chickens. You fumble for your woven tunic, which, let's be honest, is not winning any awards for softness. Outside your door, the world is suspended in blue quiet. Your mother is already muttering over a clay oven. The only thing stronger than her bread is her side-eye when you reach for a half-baked bite. You snatch a crust anyway, stuffing it into your mouth and hoping she doesn't notice. Of course she does. The first sound of the day is a donkey braying in the next courtyard. Your rival water carrier, no doubt, already gearing up for a dramatic, accidental collision at the city. Well, you gather your goatskin water skins, heavy, knotted, and looking a bit like something from a horror movie if you squint. Fringe historians claim there were once attempts at bronze or ceramic water bottles. But let's be honest, nothing says Persian practicality like a bag made from a goat's least glamorous part. You step into the courtyard. The air is sharp and smells faintly of last night's wood smoke. In the faint dawn, you can make out the silhouettes of your neighbors, some heading to market, some off to tend sheep, and at least one who will spend the day pretending to fix a roof while mostly napping on it. Why not you? You ask yourself, but then again there's water to be hauled and coins to be earned. You trudge toward the city gate, feet shuffling through dust. A rooster crows, as if to remind you that roosters are the world's first alarm clocks, and perhaps its least popular. Overhead, the first hints of sunrise edge the sky with streaks of gold. You feel the day stretching before you, as long and unpredictable as the winding alleys of the city itself. Historians still argue whether water carriers had a special spot in Persian society, or if everyone just pitied their sore shoulders and moved on. But you know, as you glance at your ragtag team of fellow carriers gathering at the gate, that you're part of a long, unbroken line, a kind of secret society whose membership fee is waking up before even the bakers. Someone cracks a joke about last week's spill. At least the fish were hydrated, and the group snickers quietly. In this sleepy blue dawn, you shoulder your waterskins, exchange sleepy nods with your companions, and step through the city gate. The journey is beginning, not with a bang, but with the heavy sigh of a person who knows there are many, many steps to go before breakfast. You shuffle along the packed dirt street, the city barely awake around you. There's a low hum in the air, a mix of anticipation and the collective groan of everyone who got out of bed far too early. With a practiced motion, somewhere between a magician's trick and a sleepwalker's fumble, you grab your first goatskin waterskin. These bags are, frankly, the unsung heroes of Persian water logistics. And also, according to your aching back, possibly the world's oldest practical joke. You twist and tug at the leather cord securing the mouth of the skin. Persian water carriers learn to tie and untie these knots in their sleep, sometimes literally, if you believe your uncle's stories. Historians still debate whether the complicated knots were designed to keep the water pure or just to make life difficult for apprentices. Either way, you're getting good at it, only spilling a little down your tunic as you tighten it, which the old-timers call blessing your toes for the journey ahead. There's a whiff of damp leather and maybe something less pleasant. You can't tell if it's the goat skin or just you. You hoist the bag over your shoulder, feeling the first ache settle in, and move to fill another. The bags, heavy when full, collapse in on themselves like deflated balloons when empty. And they squeak, loudly, in a way that makes you suspect goats were getting the last laugh even after death. Your hands are numb with morning chill as you fill and tie, the world narrowing to a rhythm. Dip, haul, tie, heft, sigh. A friend of yours claims that the best water carriers can handle 5 skins at once, all balanced across their shoulders like a human scale. You, on the other hand, consider it a win if you make it to the corner without doing a one-man slapstick routine. Today, you're joined by a couple of other early risers. Arash, whose only talent more impressive than knot tying is complaining, and Yasmin, who claims she can sense a puncture in a water skin by smell alone. Historians have never agreed whether women worked as water carriers in ancient Persia. There's evidence for both sides, so you happily include Yasmin in your crew. After all, nobody can glare a hole through a leaky skin quite like her. There's always a sense of camaraderie in these early hours. Someone inevitably forgets to tie their skin tightly enough, and soon there's a steady drip behind them. Today, it's Arash, whose right shoe is already soaked and squelching with every step. He shrugs. Extra weight training, he jokes, earning a sleepy smirk from the group. You check your load, a test squeeze here, a gentle thump there, making sure nothing will spring a leak mid-journey. A misstep could mean not just soggy feet, but lost wages and, more importantly, a lecture from your supervisor. Some say water carriers in Persia wore special tokens or colors to mark their guild. But historians still argue over whether this was a matter of pride or just a way for supervisors to spot slackers at a distance. With your cargo wrangled, you gather your courage and your most sincere "I'm totally awake" face and head for the city gate. The sky is lightening, and you can just make out the silhouette of the city walls, sturdy and reassuring against the uncertain dawn. The air is starting to buzz with the day's business, and you know that soon these streets will be full of vendors, children, and that one goat who seems to know exactly how to block your path at the worst possible moment. Your crew falls into step, water skins thumping against your sides, laughter and groans echoing down the lane. You glance over your shoulder, half hoping you remember to shut the door behind you, half wishing you could just crawl back inside for a few more minutes of sleep. But the day is calling, and so are the people of the city. Thirsty, demanding, and completely dependent on your morning hustle. As you walk, you can't help but think about the small quirks that make this job what it is. The distinctive smell of wet goatskin, the constant battle with knots, and the gentle art of not tripping over your own feet. And as the first rays of sun creep over the horizon, you steel yourself for the adventures, both ordinary and unexpected, that await on the long journey ahead. You squeeze through the half-open city gate with your crew, the heavy skins pulling at your shoulders, boots scraping against the uneven stone. The old wooden doors are banded with iron and already damp with morning dew. The guards, bundled in wool cloaks, barely glance up. Another troop of water carriers is the least interesting thing they'll see all day. You'd like to believe you look heroic, but in reality, you're more like a parade of sleep-deprived pack mules shuffling into the dawn. The city outside is still yawning awake. A rooster crows, again, proving that even in ancient Persia, the universe has a sense of irony. You dodge a goat tied to a cart, barely avoiding a confrontation with its remarkably expressive eyes. Historians still debate whether goats were considered sacred or just stubbornly tolerated, but today you're inclined to believe the latter. Arash mutters, "That goat is plotting something." Yasmin rolls her eyes, which is her way of agreeing, as E. You pass a bakery. The smell of fresh bread teases your senses. The baker's boy, not much younger than you, is hauling flour sacks and sneaking bites of sweet date paste when his father's back is turned. You consider asking for a piece, but he's already eyeing your water skin with a look that says, "Trade." It's clear as daylight. You sigh and promise to come back after your first run if you have any water or patience left. The crowd thickens as you trudge toward the main well. Other water carriers jostle past, most sporting similar uniforms of patched tunics, short tempers, and creatively tied sandals. There's an art to moving through this crowd. Some claim the best technique is to shout louder than anyone else, but you prefer Yasmin's approach. A practiced sidestep and a glare that parts people like the Red Sea. Historians still argue whether water carriers had priority at the city wells, or if it was a chaotic free-for-all. Judging by the swirl of elbows and half-awake shoving, you suspect the latter. A street sweeper waves his broom at a group of stray dogs. They scatter, but one lingers, sniffing the air as if deciding which water carrier is most likely to spill, on his head. You give him a wide berth. Last week, Arash made the mistake of making eye contact and ended up losing half a loaf of bread to a borrowed dog. You and your crew keep moving, weaving past a fishmonger setting up his stall, the sharp scent of river carp riding on the breeze. A few vendors are already arguing over prime market spots. You overhear a heated discussion about whether the western gate is better for foot traffic than the eastern one, punctuated by the sound of a merchant whacking a wooden crate for emphasis. There's a comfort in these morning rituals. The same voices, the same jokes, the same ongoing debate about which part of town sells the best honey. A donkey, untethered and clearly living his best life, ambles into your path. You slow, weighing your options. Challenge him and risk a hoof to the shin. Wait patiently and risk Yasmin's withering commentary. You choose patience, though you do make a mental note to petition the city council for donkey lanes next year. Finally, you clear the thickest of the crowd and find yourself in a slightly quieter lane. The sky has shifted from deep blue to pale gold, and you realize the sun is officially up. There's a certain magic to this hour, when everything is possible, and the day hasn't yet settled into its inevitable rhythm of work, more work, and the occasional accidental nap. You take a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill your lungs, and grin as Arash tries to stifle a yawn. The other carriers rib him for being the first to complain every morning, but you know it's just part of the routine. Someone claims the city is blessed with the purest morning air in all Persia, but historians still argue whether that's just a clever sales pitch by local poets. As you head toward the well, your arms already aching and your eyes scanning for the next challenge, you remind yourself. The day is long, the city is big, and your journey is only just beginning. But at least you're not that goat. The ancient well stands at the city's heart. A time-worn stone ring, worn smooth by generations of hands and ropes. You reach it with your crew, and for a moment, there's a hush. Just the soft splash of a distant bucket, the hollow creak of the windlass, and the faint slap of sandal on flagstone. If city life is an orchestra, the morning well is its slow overture. Low, steady, unhurried. You join the line, shifting your weight as you size up the competition. Old Marjan, a legend among water carriers, is already there. Lean and quick, with a right arm like a blacksmith's and an uncanny talent for sniffing out the sweetest water. Historians still argue whether certain wells in ancient Persia truly produced better-tasting water, or if the belief was just clever marketing by the families who owned them. Marjan, of course, claims to taste the difference and tells the story, at least twice a week. You suspect her real secret is arriving before sunrise to claim the first bucket. You wrap your hands around the thick hemp rope and begin the morning ritual. Lower, lower. The bucket bumps the sides, scraping stone, sending down an echo that belongs to another era. Your palms burn with friction, but you focus on the splash as the bucket hits water. That satisfying sound that means today's work has begun in earnest. Pulling up a full bucket feels like hoisting a boulder covered in slime. Each twist and squeak of the windlass brings out a fresh symphony of muscle complaints from your back and shoulders. Arash, waiting behind you, hums a dramatic tune. He insists it gives the rope better morale. You try not to laugh and almost lose your grip as a result. Yasmin is all business, inspecting the flow for stray frog legs or algae clumps. Someone whispers that the wells are haunted by the ghosts of thirsty travelers. Historians still debate whether that's why some buckets seem heavier at dawn. A gentle joke passes down the line. Remember last week's bucket? The one with the extra protein? The laughter ripples through the water carriers, a reminder that while history books rarely mention it, humor is the best armor against a morning of back-breaking work. Your turn arrives. The bucket, heavy and dripping, sloshes cold water onto your toes. Again. You hoist it to the rim, muscles straining, and pour the clear, precious water into your first goatskin bag. It gurgles and bubbles, settling into its familiar, unwieldy shape. You knot it closed, feeling a touch of pride that the knot holds on the first try. Old Marjan catches your eye and gives a rare approving nod. Not bad, she grumbles. Once your crew's skins are filled, you step aside and let the next team approach. There's a rhythm to the entire scene, an ancient choreography that hasn't changed in centuries. The well itself, you imagine, must have seen everything. Laughter, arguments, whispered secrets, and at least a dozen shoes accidentally dropped and retrieved at great personal risk. On the edge of the well, two elderly men gossip about the price of grain, pausing only to inspect the water for clarity. One swears he can tell if a crop will be good or bad by the taste of the morning's first sip. The other insists it's the sound the bucket makes. If it's a lucky splash, the year will be abundant. Historians still argue whether this superstition was born from wisdom or boredom. You lean in, eager for any tip that might give you an edge, even as you suspect they're mostly making it up as they go. As the crowd at the well thickens, a small drama unfolds. A young apprentice drops a bucket into the well and stares in horror as it disappears below. Someone starts an impromptu rescue mission with a hook on a rope, and the rest of the carriers offer advice, most of it unhelpful but deeply entertaining. Next time, tie your breakfast to the rope instead, Arash quips, earning a round of sleepy chuckles. Finally, your crew, loaded and ready, steps away from the well. The city is brighter now, the air buzzing with activity. Vendors set up in the square. The baker's boy waves as you pass, and Marjan is already gone, no doubt off to her next secret well. You flex your fingers, water still dripping from the skin's seam, and exchange a look with Yasmin. One well down, dozens of stops to go. The day is only just beginning, and so is your parade of dripping, sloshing, and occasionally heroic water carrying across the Persian cityscape. Loaded with your first haul, you slip from the well into the swelling market square. The world is stretching awake now. Bread vendors waving flatbreads as wide as shields, butchers sharpening knives that gleam like silver fish, spice sellers upending bright pyramids of saffron, turmeric, and cumin. Your nostrils tingle with the medley, smoke, baking, crushed mint, and the faint earthy tang of your own goatskin cargo. If you're lucky, you'll make it through the square without adding Ware's eau de goatskin to your reputation. The square is a dance floor of early risers, all angling for the best spots before the main crowds arrive. You tiptoe between a pyramid of pomegranates and a mountain of onions, doing your best not to bump either. The challenge is compounded by the fact that every step sends a slosh through your water skin, reminding you that the real test isn't the weight, but the balancing act. A pair of bakers hustle past, arms full of still warm loaves. You're tempted to swap a ladle of water for a hunk of bread, but you spot the city guard nearby. The rules about water trading are strict. Historians still argue whether these rules kept peace or simply lined officials' pockets. You keep moving, dodging a vendor with a basket of live chickens, and in a moment of pure athleticism, sidestep a runaway melon. Yasmin winks. She claims to have invented that move, though Arash says she just copied his melon juke. You pass a woman selling boiled eggs and sweet figs, and she offers a sleepy greeting, asking for your best water. She swears by the taste from your particular well. Is it the limestone? The wind? The prayers you mutter when tying your knots? Historians haven't decided, but you chalk it up to your undeniable charm, and maybe the fact that you haul your skins before sunrise, when the water is coldest. A sly striped cat weaves around your ankles, clearly plotting a breakfast heist. You're almost flattered, until he tries to trip you with his tail. Market cats are legendary in this city. Some say the same family of felines has prowled these stalls for generations. There's a running debate over whether the cats or the butchers rule the square. And honestly, you're not sure which side you're on. Near the center, a storyteller perches on an upturned crate, spinning tales for a gathering crowd. Stories of desert bandits, hidden springs, and water that can turn a penny into a pearl. If you believe his uncle, who definitely didn't invent that story just to impress a merchant's daughter. Arash leans in, hoping for a new punchline. The crowd laughs, the city comes alive, and for a moment you almost forget your back is aching, but the square holds its perils. A surly goat, possibly the same one from earlier, blocks your path with a look that says, "Try me." You and the goat engage in a tense staring contest, which you win, barely, by offering him a wilted lettuce leaf left behind by a grocer. Victory tastes faintly of goat spit and moral ambiguity. You spot the shortcut you've been waiting for, a narrow alley behind a spice vendor, lined with baskets of ginger and bundles of leeks. It's faster, yes, but requires the grace of a cat burglar and the patience of a saint. As you squeeze through, you feel the prickly end of a broom handle, courtesy of the street sweeper, who grumbles something about kids these days. You apologize, smile and tiptoe on, careful not to upend a single scallion. Historians still argue whether water carriers had a secret network of shortcuts. Some swear every alley in the city was mapped out by thirsty minds. You think there's truth to that. As you slip through the back way, you dodge a puddle, avoid an enthusiastic bread vendor, and emerge, miraculously, still upright and only slightly damp. Finally, the market's far edge opens before you. The first sunlight of the day glints off tiled roofs. You take a deep breath, feeling a wave of satisfaction. You've made it through the chaos unscathed. Well, mostly. You check your cargo. The water is safe, the knots are holding, and your pride is only slightly dented by that run-in with the goat. The market square may be the city's beating heart, but for you, it's also a test of balance, luck, and knowing exactly when to duck. With a last look back at the sea of faces, stalls, and sleeping cats, you set off for the next leg of your journey, ready for whatever the city throws your way. You trudge along the sun-dappled avenue, leaving the market square behind and heading toward the elegant part of town, where the streets are lined with walled villas and garden gates carved in delicate relief. Here, the cobbles are smoother, swept by someone else's broom, and you find yourself glancing down at your dust-caked feet, suddenly wishing you'd worn your fancy sandals. Even your goatskin bag seems to sag in embarrassment, drooping a little lower as you pass under archways shaded by tangled grapevines. On either side of the street rise the tall mud-brick walls of the noble families, whitewashed, sometimes inlaid, with turquoise tiles, sometimes just scrawled with the discreet mark of family pride. You try to peer through a half-open gate, hoping for a glimpse of one of those legendary gardens. Historians still argue whether Persian nobles really cultivated exotic plants from as far away as India and Greece, or if that's just wishful thinking by bored poets. You spot an orange tree. Real or not, you're not about to ask permission for a taste. As you walk, you hear the gurgle of hidden fountains, soft laughter from within courtyards, the rhythmic sweep of someone tending roses. Occasionally a servant hurries by, basket in hand, never meeting your gaze but clearly noting the water skins on your shoulders. It's no secret. Water is the lifeblood of these gardens, and for a moment you fancy yourself a sort of humble magician, keeping paradise green one bucket at a time. A pair of guards loiter near the corner villa, spears propped against the wall, eyelids at half-mast. One of them narrows his eyes as you pass, sizing up your slouched posture and slightly muddied tunic. You there? Careful with that skin. Last week someone spilled a quart on the pomegranate tree. You offer your most apologetic bow, hiding a smile. Arash, behind you, whispers, "At least he didn't notice the grapes we sampled yesterday." Yasmin snorts softly, but keeps her eyes fixed forward. It's true, the water carriers see it all in this neighborhood. The secret morning deliveries, the comings and goings of servants, the rare sight of a noble child peeking shyly from behind, a carved gate. You once caught a fleeting glimpse of a peacock, tail fanned, strutting like it owned the block. Historians still debate whether such birds were common pets, or just for show during festivals. Either way, it made a better story than yesterday's excitement. A runaway goose. You adjust your grip on the water skin, careful not to let it bump against the delicate tile work as you pass. The guard's attention shifts as a sleek chariot rolls by, its wheels clattering on the stone. The driver sits tall, flicking the reins, while the owner, a bearded nobleman with a gold earring, pretends not to notice anyone outside his bubble of privilege. Still, you spot him eyeing your water with something like envy. It's one thing to have fountains and gardens, but everyone in this city knows the best water comes from the strong backs and clever knots of the water carriers. Just ahead, you pass a courtyard filled with the scent of jasmine and fresh-cut mint. Two older women in fine veils are sweeping flower petals into a pile, their laughter floating over the walls. You catch a snippet. "Remember when so-and-so's son tried to court the baker's daughter with a watermelon?" Yasmin grins. That one made it into every bathhouse story for a week. Historians still debate how much truth there is in these tales. But you suspect the city's real history is written in jokes and gentle scandal as much as in stone. With every step, your load seems to grow heavier, and the street stretches on, shimmering in the growing light. You spot a gardener struggling to lift a clay pot twice his size. Without thinking, you step in, steady the pot, and share a conspiratorial smile before moving on. Another tiny kindness in the sprawling web of city life. By the time you reach the end of the noble avenue, you're sweating, your shoulders ache, and your mind is whirring with the secret sights and sounds of the city's privileged corners. You pause for a moment under a fig tree, savoring the cool patch of shade, and think, if only those guards knew what really happens at sunrise in this city, they'd want your job. Well, maybe not, but at least you get the best view. The villas fade behind you as you navigate toward one of the city's most important and, for water carriers, most lucrative stops, the public bathhouse. This sprawling domed building radiates gentle heat even in the cool morning. It's tiled, mosaics gleaming under the first rays of sunlight. You push open a heavy wooden door, careful not to scrape the precious tiles, and are immediately greeted by a waft of steam mingled with herbal scents. Rose, lavender, and, faintly, last week's misplaced sandal. The attendant, a wizened man with eyebrows longer than his patient's, gestures you in with a practiced wave. You haul your water skin to the storage basin, careful to pour just enough for the morning bathers without making it obvious you're holding back a bit for your next client. Historians still argue whether ancient Persian bathhouses had strict water quotas, or whether everything depended on the attendant's mood. This one, at least, runs on favors, gossip, and the occasional sweet treat slipped into his hand. The soundscape here is different. Gentle splashing, soft voices echoing beneath. The dome, a flute playing somewhere in the corner. You catch a glimpse of a merchant arguing quietly with his son. Something about using the expensive soap versus the regular variety. Arash cranes his neck for a peek at the bathers, but Yasmin elbows him with a stern, "Focus on the water, not the bubbles." The running joke among water carriers is that they know more city secrets than any priest or magistrate. Bathhouse talk, after all, is the purest distillation of city rumor. You finish your pour and step aside as two women, veiled but clearly of noble birth, approach with their own small water jugs. They thank you, then slip into a side chamber, already deep in whispered conversation. A moment later, a gaggle of children rushes in, giggling, towels clutched to their chests. You catch snippets. "He said the water was from the coldest well." "No, it's from the haunted one. My uncle saw a frog in it last week." Historians still debate whether frogs were actually considered omens of luck or just a good excuse to avoid a cold bath. The bathhouse attendant eyes your skin, inspects the knot, and finally, with a grunt of approval, offers you a bit of honeyed flatbread from a warm cloth. You savor the sweet, sticky treat, your unofficial bathhouse tax. Yasmin gets her favorite. A handful of candied walnuts, allegedly payment for her silence on that one time the attendant forgot to light the morning coals. Your crew exchanges a few words with the bathers, keeping your ears open for the juiciest new rumors. Today's hot topic is a merchant who tried to pass off salt water as fresh. No one can agree whether he was punished or simply laughed out of the market. The bathhouse is where reputations are made and lost, often before breakfast. You sling your now lighter skin over your shoulder and slip back into the bustling street, refreshed by the steam and the stolen taste of honey. Bathhouses might be the city's gossip mills, but for water carriers, they are also the city's best source of tips, both in coins and in stories. Historians still argue whether any other profession had such privileged access to every corner of city life. You wouldn't trade your post for anything, except maybe a long soak in one of those marble tubs. As you rejoin your friends outside, Irash jokes about asking the attendant for a job, as long as I don't have to scrub anyone's back. Yasmin shakes her head, but you all share a laugh. With the morning's bathhouse stop complete, you shoulder your skins once again, ready to chase the next client, the next rumor, and maybe, just maybe, a bit more honey. You leave the bathhouse behind, stepping back into the golden bustle of the city, and head straight for one of your favorite street corners. A little wedge of shade where three busy lanes collide. Here, every kind of client appears. Merchants in a hurry, servants on errands, and grandmothers wielding their walking sticks with the authority of emperors. It's the ideal spot for business, and more importantly, for people watching. You set down your water skins, already feeling the ache in your shoulders, and before you can stretch, the negotiations begin. A spice merchant, smelling faintly of cardamom and ambition, waves you over, haggling for an extra ladle for his morning tea. His argument, as always, is that he's your best customer. You smile, pour just a little extra, and remind him that loyalty is measured in coins, not compliments. Historians still argue whether water carriers could set their own prices or were bound by city law. But you know a practiced wink can be worth its weight in copper. No sooner have you settled that deal than a grandmother appears, elbowing her, way to the front with the legendary glare that has cleared more crowds than a city-wide sandstorm. She ignores the merchant, fixes you with eyes that could melt granite, and declares her need for the very coldest water. You oblige, partly because you value your kneecaps, and partly because her stories, once she's satisfied, are pure gold. Yasmin manages the crowd like a seasoned juggler, balancing pause and pleasantries, while Arash, ever the entertainer, tosses a coin and lets it land in his palm with a flourish. He claims it's an old family trick, but you suspect he's just practiced more than he admits. The children in line giggle, and even the stern-faced merchant cracks a smile. The morning's business pulses with a gentle energy, a choreography of commerce that's as much about personality as it is about product. One particularly vocal customer insists the water tastes different on market days, sweeter with a hint of luck. Historians still debate whether these beliefs came from real differences in water sources or simply from the stories spun at street corners like this one. You're inclined to believe it's a bit of both. Water and storytelling are equally essential ingredients in this city. Between pores, you catch snippets of gossip. A baker's daughter is engaged, a scribe's pet monkey escaped, again, and someone claims to have seen a shooting star over the city gate. Arash winks at you, murmuring, "That star was probably just Yasmin's glare reflected off a silver tray." You nearly lose your grip on a waterskin, laughing. A young boy tries to jump the line, but the grandmother blocks him with her cane. Order restored, she resumes her place at the front, muttering about young people these days. You can't help but admire her efficiency. If there's a job more demanding than water carrying, it might just be keeping the street corner running smoothly. Business is brisk, and the sun is inching higher, warming the dusty stones at your feet. You work quickly, finding your rhythm. Pour, smile, haggle, joke, repeat. The coins clink into your pouch. The water skins grow lighter, and the city grows noisier with every passing moment. As you prepare to move on, the grandmother, finally, appeased, leans in to share a piece of street wisdom. Keep your knots tight, your prices fair, and never trust a thirsty merchant. You thank her, promise to remember, and heft your load for the next round of deliveries. Historians still argue whether advice like this was passed down or invented on the spot. Either way, you decide it's worth carrying along with your water. The sun is rising in earnest now, casting long, golden lines across the city rooftops and heating up the cobbled lanes. With every step, you feel the weight of the water growing heavier, a curious paradox, since your skins are actually a little lighter than before. Perhaps it's just that your muscles are remembering every trip from the past week, or maybe the city itself is conspiring to make sure you earn every single coin in your pouch. You're not alone in feeling the day shift. As the light grows, brighter. The air fills with the sounds of the city, truly waking. Vendors calling, children running, a flute trilling from an open window. And with the heat, so too comes the most predictable tradition of all, the debate over water prices. You settle at a busy crossroads, your skin sticking slightly to your shoulder, and prepare yourself for the first haggler. It doesn't take long. A merchant, wiping sweat from his brow with a sleeve that was white a few hours ago, approaches with practiced exasperation. "Same water as yesterday, but twice the price?" he asks, as if shocked by the laws of supply and demand. You shrug and smile. Blame the sun, not the seller. Historians still argue whether price setting was a formal process or just a product of the moment. But you know the truth. As the day heats up, so do negotiations. Yasmin, standing nearby, delivers her favorite line. Water before sunrise is for friends. Water after sunrise is for business. The regulars nod, grumble, and, almost always, hand over the extra coin. There's a rhythm to it all. Predictable as the sunrise, necessary as the water itself. Occasionally, things get heated, pun intended. One customer insists he saw a cheaper water carrier over by the northern well, but Arash simply raises an eyebrow and asks, "Was his water this cold? Was his knot this tight?" The crowd laughs. Reputation is everything here, and your crew has earned its status not just by waking early, but by delivering, reliably and with just enough flair to keep people coming back. You notice a group of new faces, a pair of young sisters in colourful veils, arguing about whether the water tastes of mourning, or just tastes wet. Their grandmother laughs, reminding them that in her day, everyone was grateful for whatever water they could get, cold or not. She shares a story about the Great Drought, though historians still debate when or if that drought actually happened. The sun climbs higher. The glint off a neighbor's brass teapot nearly blinds you. The price for a full skin has now doubled compared to dawn. The mood is less forgiving too. Tempers flare, bargains are struck in whispers, and a few clients try their luck with dramatic sighs and tales of families dying of thirst. You respond with your best look of concern, and keep your hand on your pouch, just in case. Despite the posturing, there's a sense of camaraderie here. The market is a stage, and every merchant, carrier, and customer knows their part. The haggling is a ritual, almost comforting in its predictability. And, every so often, someone pays double, just for the privilege of skipping the line or getting the first pour of the afternoon. Historians still argue whether this kind of social theater kept the peace or just kept everyone busy. You mop your brow, feel the heat rising from the stones, and remind yourself, this is the heart of the job. Part endurance, part performance, all in a day's work. And as you heft your skins for the next delivery, you realize you wouldn't have it any other way. Unless, of course, someone invents cold running water. But for now, you settle for another coin, another laugh, and another step toward the next sun-baked street. Sometimes, when you're feeling adventurous, or just desperate for a shortcut, you take the riverbank route. Everyone knows it saves a good 10 minutes, and those minutes add up when the sun is blazing and your skin feels 2 sizes too small. Today, feeling bold and slightly annoyed by the ongoing debate over prices, you decide to risk it. You slip through a narrow alley behind a basket maker's stall, and soon the sounds of the marketplace fade, replaced by the rush of water and the rhythmic croak of frogs. The river is lower than it was last month. Historians still argue whether these fluctuations were caused by drought, upstream irrigation, or just the will of the river spirits. The exposed banks are slick with mud, pocked by old footprints, stray reeds, and here and there the unmistakable imprint of a goat hoof. You eye these with suspicion. The city's goats have a sixth sense for drama, with your goatskin bags swinging in your sides. You pick your way along the edge, eyes fixed on the ground. There's a delicate balance between watching for sudden muddy patches and not thinking about what might be lurking beneath the water's surface. Yasmin, trailing a few steps behind, whispers about the legendary river snake, the one that only appears to people carrying water. Arash swears he saw it once, but you're fairly certain he mistook a floating sandal for something far more sinister. Still, you walk a little quicker. Halfway along, you hit a patch of slick clay. Your foot skids, arms windmilling for balance. A less experienced carrier would have ended up face first in the river. But you right yourself at the last second, earning a round of applause from an audience of ducks. They paddle away in alarm, quacking their disapproval, but you offer a bow. Anyway, you've learned that a little humility goes a long way, especially with ducks. The shortcut, for all its hazards, offers a moment of quiet. Here, the city seems distant, its noise muffled by the soft rustle of reeds and the gentle burble of water. You notice a fisherman hunched over a net, pausing to squint at your dripping cargo. He asks if you've heard the latest tale. Someone spotted a crocodile downstream, though historians still debate whether Persia's rivers ever hosted such beasts. Arash claims he once caught a fish with teeth sharper than Yasmin's retorts. Yasmin, without missing a beat, replies that no fish is as slippery as Arash on a hot day. You spot a pair of children crouched by the bank, building a fleet of leaf boats. They wave, calling out for lucky water for their little vessels. You fill their hands from a spare skin, and in exchange, they promise you smooth travels for the rest of the day. Historians still argue whether ancient Persians truly believed in such small rituals or just enjoyed making each other smile. As you draw closer to the city's far gate, Your shortcut nearly backfires. A sudden shout, and a trio of goats emerges. From behind a cluster of willows, trotting straight for you. You sidestep with all the agility of a trained dancer, if trained dancers carried 40 pounds of water on their backs. The goats pause, eye you with clear calculation, and then turn their attention to Arash, who wisely makes a hasty retreat. Yasmin, meanwhile, simply mutters that goats respect only the strong. You finally reach firmer ground, shoes caked with mud, but with your skin still miraculously intact and your dignity mostly preserved. The city noise returns, louder now, as if to welcome you back from a parallel universe of ducks, legends, and muddy mishaps. You glance back at the riverbank, its mysteries and shortcuts, its unexpected lessons, and realize it's these little detours that make the day memorable. Sometimes in history, as in life, the best stories come from the moments when you nearly slip, laugh at yourself, and keep going, mud and all. Wiping the mud from your sandals, you emerge onto a lively lane, known for the constant hammering of carpenters and the sharp tang of sawdust in the air. This is Craftsman's Alley, a chaotic, timber-framed world where every other face is streaked with sweat and every tool has a story. You steady your load, ready to deliver water to the hardest working hands in the city. As you approach, a carpenter, broad-shouldered, dust in his beard, waves you over, already pouring sweat into his apron. He holds out a battered clay mug, grinning in relief. Saved by the water-bearer again, he jokes. And his apprentice, balancing atop a precarious pile of planks, nods in emphatic agreement. You fill their mugs with cold water, watching steam rise as it meets the heat of their palms. Historians, still argue whether Persian craftsmen really worked from sunup to sundown or took longer midday breaks, but judging by the activity here, there's hardly a moment's rest. You take a slow walk along the alley, checking in on regular clients, joiners chiseling doors, turners whittling table legs, wheelwrights singing work songs between strokes. Arash claims the best way to get a tip is to compliment a woodworker's dovetail joint, but Yasmin swears by remembering everyone's favorite joke. You give both methods a try. A chuckle here, a nod of approval there, and soon your pouch is a little heavier. Wood chips stick to your feet, and the alley echoes with a rhythm all its own. The knock of hammers, the rasp of saws, the low murmur of workers passing gossip back and forth. Today's hot topic is the city's new public bench. Some say the mayor overspent. Others insist it's the sturdiest bench in 100 years. You add with a wink, if it holds 3 water carriers at once, I'll believe it. Laughter bounces down the lane. A rooster struts between 2 workshops, prompting bets on whether it belongs to the blacksmith or the candlemaker. The bets grow more elaborate with every pour of water. Whoever loses has to sweep sawdust for a week. Yasmin shakes her head. The real winner is the rooster. He gets breakfast from both. While you refill mugs, a young apprentice nearly topples a half-built cart. You lunge, saving both boy and cart from disaster, earning a grateful handshake and a free honey cake for the fastest reflexes this side of the river. Historians still debate whether honey cakes were the staple snack of workers or just a treat on festival days. But today, it tastes like victory. As your last customer wipes his brow, he tells you about a traveling painter who claims to have invented colored water for murals. Some say it's a miracle, others suspect it's just wine. Arash snorts. That'll make the city more colorful for sure. The group laughs, and the banter carries on as you pack up to leave. You take one last look at the Craftsman's Alley. Dusty, noisy, alive with the hum of work and camaraderie. Your load is lighter, your spirits higher, and your mind filled with new snippets of city lore. Carpentry may not be glamorous, but in these sun-warmed streets, every mug you fill is a little act of kindness. Every laugh a stitch in the city's tapestry. With a grateful wave, You set off once more, already listening for the next story. You turn the corner out of Craftsman's Alley, and the city's tempo shifts, slowing as the sun nears its zenith. It's time for the best part of a water carrier's day, the midday meal. Your crew makes its way to a little patch of shade beneath a sycamore tree right beside the tanner's yard. Close enough to hear the workers joke, but far enough to escape the sharper sense of their trade. Here, the ground is cool, and the city's noise softens to a lazy hum. You drop your water skins in a circle and sink gratefully onto the earth. Yasmin produces a cloth bundle, flatbread, sour dates, and a hunk of salty goat cheese. Arash, never. One to show up empty-handed, adds roasted chickpeas and, with a flourish, 2 small figs liberated from the merchant's garden. He claims the tree thanked him. Lunches in the city are rarely extravagant, but with good company, everything tastes like a feast. Between bites, stories start to flow. Yasmin recalls the morning's bathhouse gossip. Did you hear about the merchant who tried to pass off salt water again? They say he's scrubbing tiles until his hands turn to raisins. Arash tops that with a story about a runaway goose, leading a pack of children on a citywide chase, only to be captured by a cat clever enough to run a market stall. You add your own, the carpenter who tried to pay in coloured water, hoping to get 2 mugs for the price of 1. Historians still argue whether city folk truly took midday meals together or ate in small private groups. In your experience, nothing. Builds friendship faster than sharing bread and stories while nursing sore feet. As you eat, the sounds of the city fade. A distant bell, a merchant calling, the soft click of a weaver's loom. You spot a bird hopping in the dust, hoping for crumbs. You toss it a chickpea. It eyes you warily before snatching the prize, perhaps the most daring heist of the day. Lunch isn't just about food, it's about checking in. Arash rubs his shoulder, and Yasmin shows off a scraped knuckle, both symptoms of a water carrier's life. You all compare notes on who got the best tip, who tangled with the fiercest goat, and who managed to avoid both. There's a quiet pride in the group, a sense that even with aches and bruises, you're part of something bigger. A team, a tradition, a city held together by buckets and laughter. As the meal winds down, you stretch your legs, savor the last bite of cheese, and pour yourself a cup of water from your own skin. Even lukewarm, it tastes refreshing after a morning of hauling, bargaining, and dodging stray poultry. You tilt your head back, letting your eyes drift shut for a few precious moments of rest. A breeze stirs the sycamore leaves above, casting dappled shadows over your crew. It's the closest thing to peace the city offers at midday, a brief, cool pause before the work resumes. Historians still argue whether water carriers were envied for their knowledge of every shortcut or pitied for the weight they bore. You suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. For now, though, with a full stomach, an empty water skin, and friends at your side, the burdens of the morning seem a little lighter. You gather your things, brush off the dust, and share a final joke as you get to your feet. The meal may be over, but the day and your journey still have plenty of stories left to tell. With the last crumb gone and your legs revived, you rise and swing your now lighter water skins across your back. The city feels hotter, the air heavy with the hum of midday, and the rhythm of the street takes on a languid, almost dreamy quality. Yet beneath this drowsy surface, rumors ripple, a nervous undercurrent that drifts from market stalls to shaded courtyards and all the way to your own crew. Today the talk is all about drought. The word travels faster than a spilled bucket. Wells are dropping, the river runs thinner every week, even the noble gardens look thirsty. You hear a baker whisper that he saw fish gasping for breath near the city's north gate. A tailor swears she's sewing more shade cloths this year than any before. Historians still argue whether Persia's legendary droughts were as severe as the tales say, or if storytellers simply needed a dramatic flourish between bread breaks. As you move through the winding lanes, every stop becomes a stage for rumor. Arash, ever the optimist, dismisses the panic. Every summer someone says the wells are dry, and every summer we all keep hauling. Yasmin, more pragmatic, checks her water skin at each well, sniffing for any hint of trouble, and gives nothing away. You caught between can't help but listen for the stories behind the stories. One group of elders, perched on their favorite bench, argue loudly about the cause. "The gods are angry," insists one. "No, it's the new bridge. Blocks the river's flow," another counters. A passing merchant claims it's sunspots, while a child interrupts with the theory that someone forgot to thank the well spirit. The debate grows so lively you nearly forget to collect your coin. Historians still debate whether such superstition was common sense or just the city's version of small talk. You drop off water at the dye maker's workshop, where the vats of indigo bubble in the sun. The dyer grins. "If the wells dry up, I'll just use sweat for blue. There's enough of it on a day like this." You laugh, but you also notice how his assistant watches the sky, looking for any sign of clouds. With every delivery, the rumors evolve. Someone adds a new detail. "My cousin swears the well at the mosque is lowest of all." Another claims a merchant was seen praying at sunrise, just in case. There's an anxious camaraderie in the way people swap stories. Uncertainty draws the city together, binding strangers through whispered tales and hopeful jokes. But for every anxious word, there's a counter. Arash boasts that his grandfather survived the Great Drought of 76, though which 76 he won't say. Yasmin points out that the river always returns, eventually. You think about all the stories you've heard, how they stretch and twist with every telling. Historians still argue whether these rumors kept hope alive or just gave people something to do between chores. By the time you reach the potter's shop at the edge of town, the sun is dipping lower and the shadows lengthen. The potter, hands caked in clay, takes his water gratefully and tells you, "Stories of drought come and go, but the city endures. Besides, even empty wells echo if you listen hard enough." It's the kind of wisdom you tuck away for later, along with all the day's other rumors and tall tales. You pause a moment, soaking up the late afternoon sun, your water skins nearly empty, and your mind swirling with every tale you've heard. The day is winding down, but the stories, both true and invented, will ripple through the city long after you're home. You turn back toward the city's heart, water skins noticeably lighter, every muscle quietly protesting the day's labor. The afternoon sun has softened, but still paints the alleys in gold and shadow as you weave through the crowd. The city's pulse slows. Vendors pack away unsold fruit. Street sweepers coax the last dust from the stones, and somewhere a lone flute plays a slow, drowsy melody. Each step feels heavier, as though your sandals have learned the art of stubbornness from the market goats. Arash trudges at your side, still cracking jokes about who will carry the water carrier home. Yasmin, determined as ever, leads the way, her gaze fixed on the familiar path, every shortcut and side street a muscle memory. Historians still argue whether ancient water carriers truly took pride in their endurance, or if they simply had no other choice. Judging by your aching shoulders, you suspect a bit of both. You pass a group of children skipping stones near the bathhouse. One spots you and calls out, "Got any water left for a champion?" With a wink, you tip your last drops into their clay cup, earning cheers and a lopsided bouquet of dandelions. Moments like this are small but sweet, reminders that the city's spirit runs deeper than any well. As you make your way through the narrow alleys, the city begins its ritual shift toward evening. Doorways fill with families sharing quiet gossip and simple meals. The baker's oven glows in the twilight, and you catch the scent of fresh bread on the breeze, a fragrance more soothing than any lullaby. Arash muses, "If we could bottle that smell, we'd never work again." Yasmin rolls her eyes, but she's smiling now, the day's burdens lightened by bread and company. You pass by the city's small shrine, pausing just long enough for a whispered thanks, a private ritual, even if you're not sure whom you're thanking. Superstition, habit. Historians still debate whether such pauses were for luck or just to catch a breath. Either way, you feel a little lighter as you leave, your empty skins now flapping softly at your sides. As you near your own street, the familiar sounds of home beckon, a mother calling children in for supper, the distant clatter of pottery, laughter drifting from the rooftops. Even your neighbor's infamous goat seems subdued, quietly chewing a stalk of grass and regarding you with an almost sympathetic gaze. You nod in acknowledgement. Today, even the goat understands. Finally, you reach your door, shoulders sunburned, feet dusty, and pride quietly swelling in your chest. Yasmin and Arash wave, peeling off toward their own homes, and you trade tired grins. The three of you have covered miles together, braved mud, gossip, goats, and sun, and you wouldn't trade the day for any other, well, except maybe one with more shade. You step inside, slip off your shoes, and feel the cool floor beneath your aching feet. The day's noise fades, replaced by the gentle hush of home. You breathe deep, stretch your arms, and smile, knowing that the city's thirst is sated, for now. Tomorrow, the journey will begin all over again, with new stories, new spills, and maybe, just maybe, an easier route. As the last slant of sunlight slips away, you settle cross-legged in your dim courtyard, the emptied water skins neatly stacked at your side. Your hands are raw, palms pink from 100 knots tied and untied, and your spine aches in all the places you'd forgotten could ache. But as you lean against the clay wall, a hush washes over you. The gentle hush that only comes when the city finally exhales. You reach for your coin pouch and upend it into your lap. Copper and bronze clink together. A respectable day's haul, though not quite a fortune. You count the coins, running your thumb over their worn faces, each one carrying a faint memory. A joke shared in Craftsman's Alley, a shortcut braved along the muddy riverbank, the old grandmother's scowl dissolving into a smile at the taste of cold water. Historians still argue whether water carriers were paid fairly or if their work was always undervalued. But tonight, under the forgiving glow of a clay lamp, you feel oddly rich. As the sky turns violet, the air cools, and the scents of evening. Grilled. Onions, sweet figs, a hint of jasmine drift over the rooftops. You listen as your mother's voice floats through the house, gently chiding your younger brother for tracking dust inside. The melody of city life continues, softening now, winding down. In a nearby alley, someone strums a lute. You smile, letting the music blend with your own thoughts, each note a slow breath. You glance up and catch the first glimmer of stars, tiny pinpricks of light, patient as old wells, watching the city night after night. In this moment, all the bustle and chatter, the coins and complaints, the city's thirst and the water carrier's pride, fade into something gentle and steady. You savor it, letting the silence settle over your shoulders like a familiar cloak. With one last sleepy stretch, you tuck away your coins, close your eyes, and listen to your own quiet heart. The journey is done for now, and tomorrow's long walk is a distant dream. The stories you've gathered ripple in your mind, settling into a calm as deep as the city's oldest well. All is still. All is enough. Sleep finds you here, where water once was heavy and now, at last, your burdens are light. Let your breath slow and settle, each inhale drawing in the cool, gentle quiet of a Persian evening. Each exhale letting go of the sunburn, the mud, the laughter, and the weight of a long day. Picture the soft glow of a clay lamp, flickering at your bedside, and the distant lull of voices fading into silence. The city hums far away now, just a soft promise on the night air. Feel the peace that comes when your journey is finished, your burdens set down, and the world grows hushed and kind around you. Let your muscles relax, your thoughts drift like lanterns over a midnight river, carried gently by dreams. In the Yalm, quiet embrace of night, you are safe, you are home, and there is nothing left to do but rest. Good night, traveler. May tomorrow bring you gentle roads and lighter loads.